Nectar of Instruction discussion. So, not sure how many of you were in last class, but I can just quickly go through the key highlights that we had in last class, and then we can continue where we left. Just give me a minute. Okay, so we are going through the Nectar of Instruction. Nectar of Instruction is based upon the personal instruction given by Mahaprabhu to Srila Rupa Goswami in Jagannath Puri. So later on, based upon Mahaprabhu's instructions, Rupa Goswami compiled Nectar of Instruction. So let's see how to move this. So this book has basically 11 verses, and those verses are talking about what are the things that we need to avoid, and also what are the items that we need to adopt. And then the last few verses talking about residing in Braja. So here is the breakout of what those verses are talking about. And then we also went through the first verse, Vacho Begam, Mansako the Begam, Jiva Begam, Mudro, Pasta Begam, Etan Begam, Yo Vishaheta Dhiraha, Sarvam Apimam Prithvim Sasishyat. So we went through this verse that says that there are 6 urges which are unfavorable to advancement in bhakti. And one by one, we went through all those verses, and these verses in nutshell are basically working on the 3 urges that we have: urge of vani, vacha, speech, urge of mind, and urge of body. And then we saw them how they are categorized in different type of urges. And then we discussed that these are basically as a step or as a a preliminary or primary step for one to cultivate their mood for devotional service. In Navodha Bhakti, Sravanam Kirtanam, Asmarnam, the 9 limbs of bhakti are the primary activities of the bhakti. Those are the principal activity that we do. And by doing that, we are engaged in bhakti. But following the 4 regulatory principles normally that we take bhav at the time of initiation, such as no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. Those are not the primary element of the bhakti, but those are necessary for us to perform pure devotional service. For example, we have to take bath. Okay, taking bath definitely is very, very helpful. If you don't take bath, it will be very difficult for you to focus, and also you will not be clean. But taking bath is not the basically process of bhakti. Rather, hearing and chanting and remembering Krishna and saying, his pastime, those are the direct elements of the bhakti. So, verse number 2 and 3 is what we have to go through. If I get some time, I'll also go through the all study material that I sent today. So, in this, not in this, but in module 4, we have basically Nectar of Instruction. And Nectar of Instruction has 6 lessons, and they are basically in a group. So preface and first verse that we just finished is lesson number 1, and then second and third verse is second lesson. So what I will do is that the 6 lessons I'll try to cover in 6 classes. That's how I will go. That way, it will be in flow. So we'll get into verse number 2. And this verse very powerful verse. It goes like Atyahara Paryasasya Prajalpaniyamagraha Janasangasya Lolyamcha Sadvir Bhaktir Vinashyati. So once devotional service is spoiled when he or she becomes too entangled in these six activities, and those are listed here. Atyahara. Atyahara means eating too much or collecting more than necessary. And then prayasas, over endeavoring for mundane things that are difficult. So trying to do things which are difficult to normally achieve, but putting our over endeavor to achieve that is considered uh, prayasas. And then prajalpa is basically unnecessary mundane talk. So Prabhupada has basically taken each of these and then given the description in the purport. So the way we'll go through these verses is that first we'll see what those verses are, what the literal meaning of those words are, and then we'll try to basically see what Prabhupada is saying in the purport. And this is based upon, this whole course is basically to study Prabhupada's book. So we'll try to summarize some key highlights that's coming from the purport. And then if there are any topic that we need to discuss as we are going along, or maybe at the end of the class, we can discuss. So Niyamagraha is the fourth one, which means accepting rules for immediate material benefits. So sometimes one may be very eager to accept certain thing, and motivation with that acceptance is to have some immediate material benefit. Then that will be considered niyamagraha. Also, niyamagraha means neglecting certain rules and regulations which are necessary for us to elevate in Krishna consciousness. So accepting something which is not for our self-realization is not recommended. At the same time, neglecting something which are necessary for our self-realization is also not recommended. So we have to have a good balance. And then Jan Sanghas, association, associating with the people who have material motivation and they are not interested for devotional service of Krishna, not inspired for pure bhakti, their association should also be abandoned. And then lolyam, lolyam is greed, greed for mundane activity, puja, la, pratishtha, all of that. That one may be doing the prayasa, making the over endeavor to have those mundane things in their life. Sadvihir bhakti vinashyati. Vinashyati means it's vanquished. So if one is basically entangled or engaged in these six activities, one's bhakti will be spoiled. So Nectar of Instruction is based upon, as I said, teaching of Mahaprabhu. And these are very powerful, instructions. As an instructor, I'll definitely read as Prabhupada has given the word, but I personally do not think that I am qualified or I even, have possession of any one of this, quality that is mentioned here. But at the same time, we have to, study, we have to learn these things, because slowly and slowly, if we know how far we have to go, we can set ourselves up, and then we can, definitely get there where we have to go. So all of this definitely is our kind of milestone as we move along in the process of bhakti. But it's very important for us to understand what these things are, because for sadhaka, it's very, very important. And when Prabhupada starts writing the purport for this verse, he basically starts talking about that there are three energies of the Supreme Lord. And those energies are Antaranga Shakti, Tatastha Shakti, and Bahiranga Shakti. So Antaranga Shakti is known as internal potency, and Tatastha Shakti, Tatastha, in the middle, Tatastha is the marginal potency, and living beings represents the marginal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Bahiranga Shakti is external potency, which is represented by Maya. So Maya is the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Antarang Shakti, how many of you know how many Antarang Shakti Krishna has? Anybody knows? How many internal potency Krishna has? You might have read it, but it's difficult to remember everything. So Krishna has 3 Antarang Shakti also. That's called Jnana Shakti, which is Shamvit potency. So Jnana Shakti, Bala and Kriya Shakti. So Jnana Shakti is known as Samvit potency. Bala Shakti is known as Sandhini Shakti. And Kriya potency is known as Hladini Shakti. Samvit Shakti is represented by Yog Maya. And Maya is Mahamaya, Durga. So Yog Maya is the representation of the Shamit Shakti. And who represents the Sandhini Shakti? Who knows? Huh?
Lord Baldev Prabhuji?
Yes, Lord Balram is the personification of Sandhini Shakti. Sandhini, Bala Shakti. Sandhini means one who keeps things together. So Bala Shakti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is represented by Lord Baldev. And who represents Hladini Shakti?
Radha.
Yes, Srimati Radha Rani is the personification of the Hladini Shakti. Hladini Shakti is all pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So anything that gives us happiness, even in the material world, is all manifestation of Hladini Shakti, Srimati Radharani's, potencies. So these are the 3 potencies: Samyut Shakti, Sandhini Shakti, and Hladini Shakti. These are the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And living being, we as living being are Tatastha Shakti. We are the marginal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in Tatastha Shakti, there are 2 types of personality. The first one is Mahatmas, and second one is Duratmas. So Mahatmas are the one who are always engaged in devotional service. They don't get contaminated. They don't get allured or attracted by anything else. They are so much merged in pure devotional service, and they are so much relishing the pure devotional service that they do not enjoy anything else. But on the other hand, Duratmas are the people who either very much stay engaged in personal sense gratification or extended sense gratification. So personal sense gratification is basically the gratification that we do from our gross senses. And extended sense gratification is basically doing the things such as, we can take the poverty out of this planet, or, Prabhupada said that creating United Nations and all of, that stuff that we do for the welfare of the other people. In one sense, it's kind of not being very faithful or not having a strong faith in Krishna, thinking that I can change somebody else's destiny. So that is considered Duratma type of personality who are always associated with external energy of the Krishna. They enjoy the external energy of Krishna and they are totally entangled into it. But Mahatmas are the one who are always rejoicing the eternal potential of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And they are very much always staying in higher consciousness. And then the third energy, so Jiva can basically, Jiva has full potential to become Mahatma. But if Jiva decides to stay and become Duratma, then due to their independent, very minute independence that is given by Krishna, living being can act as Duratma. And once we start acting with Duratma, then we are very much captured by this Bahiranga Shakti. So Mahatmas are very much controlled. Name Bhakta Panashyati, Krishna says, his devotees are very much either in external or internal world. They are completely protected by Krishna, but Mahatmas definitely they are completely in the full shelter of the Krishna, and they rejoice, as I said, the eternal potency of the Lord. But this Duratma, they try to enjoy with the Bhirang Shakti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that process, they get different types of suffering. And then 3 types of suffering are mentioned in that purport. I'm sure all of you know that. Adi Daivik Klesha. What is Adi Daivik Klesha? Suffering that is, I'm sure all of you know that. So suffering that is coming from the, divine arrangement of the Lord. And then we have Adi Bhautik, that's coming from the nature, that's coming from the surrounding where we live in. And then Adhyatmika is the suffering or type of suffering that coming from our own body. We get sick, we have pains, we have some issues with our body. So that type of, suffering that we receive, it's all coming from Adhyatmic Klesha. So Prabhupada is saying the reason these energies of Krishna has been mentioned here, very clearly it gives us the idea that people who are Duratmas, okay, I would like to read word by word as it says here. In the initial stage of bhakti practice, the material proclivities are prominent in the sadhakas. So they are unable to subdue 6 urges described in the first verse, Vacha Begam Mansa, Jiva Begam. So the 6 urges that we just read in verse number 1, since they are very weak and they have, tendency to enjoy the lower energy, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are prone to all of this suffering. Consequently, many other tendencies harmful to the bhakti develops in the hearts of the sadhaka. These are described in second verse. So, since this Bahiranga Shakti is acting on the Duratma personality, they are very weak. And due to that weakness, they need this guidance. Nectar of Instruction is basically, the book itself is called Updeshamrita. It's basically Nectar of Instruction. So this Nectar of Instruction is needed for ourselves to detach from Bahiranga Shakti and trying to associate or develop the taste for internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I would just give a 2 or 3 minute pause. Is there any question so far? Is it clear? Is it clear why we have to know why the energies of Krishna is mentioned here? And how Mahatma and Duratma interact with these energies. Is it clear?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So with that, we'll basically go one by one and go through the key highlights of the points that's being made in each purport, or in the purport related to each point, 6 items that we just spoke. So ati means too much, and ahara means ahara, to seize or grasp or consume for one's enjoyment. So atihara means excessive enjoyment of the sense object through any one of the senses, and the endeavor to accumulate in excess of one's requirement. So too much sense enjoyment, Prabhupada is saying, and also desire to accumulate more than our necessity is atihara. People who are renunciants, they are forbidden to accumulate material goods. But on the other hand, Grihastha Vaishnava can acquire good sufficient for their maintenance, but not beyond their basic need. So these are the points that coming in the purpose. So we all are Grihastha, and we can acquire goods sufficient for our maintenance, but Nectar of Instruction is saying that not more than our needs. I mean, this is very hard. All of us definitely have more than our needs. So one side, there is a example of renunciants who are completely renounced. On the other hand, there are example of the people, who are over endeavoring, and they are accumulating more than what they need. But there is also example given here uh, in reference to all the animals. So animals do not eat or collect more than they need. So they do not have a scarcity or economic problems. Example, seeing a bag of rice. Birds take a few grains, but a human being takes the whole bag. Prabhupada is writing in the purport that we can see the example of all the living beings except human being, that they only take things as per their need. Even if there is tons of stuff given to them, they will only take what their needs are. But human being will take everything. And this greed has really caused a lot of problem in the material world. So the instruction is given here by Mahaprabhu that for the devotee, we should try to basically uh, minimize our needs. So atihara causes the prayasa. So what is atihara? Atihara is basically having the desire to enjoy the senses too much, or trying to achieve more than our need. So once this atihara is active, then that inspire one to do prayas, hard work, hard endeavor to obtain certain things which is difficult to obtain. So we'll go through the second element, second item out of those 6. Prayasa, the cultivation of knowledge by jnanis, the austerity and the vows undertaken by karmis, the hard labor of ambitious materialists are all example of prayasa. So unnecessary endeavor. So jnani will work very hard. They will renounce everything, and they will work very hard to acquire the knowledge. The karmi, they will work very hard for their fruitive activity. So all of these is basically considered prayasa, or a karmic people, materialistic people, bhautikvadi people. They will be very much, working hard to fulfill the ambition that they have. It's all prayasa. But jivasya tattva jigyasa. Prabhupada is saying that the real purpose of life is to endeavor to inquire about the absolute truth. Without that, will simply endeavor to satisfy artificial needs. So there is need for soul, for sure, no doubt about it. And Prabhupada is writing in the purport that one should try to not work very hard for artificial need. Rather, one should, of course, one should work hard, but one should work hard for their natural, internal, eternal need. And eternal need is that living beings are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and their happiness is only when this part and parcel basically try to serve the complete Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, jivasya tattva jigyasa. So, the real endeavor that should be made by jiva, living being, is to understand the tattva, tattva of who the living being is, which is called Atma Tattva, and who the Lord Himself is, which is called Brahm Tattva. So, having having knowledge, and whatever it takes to come to that knowledge, whatever endeavor one has to make to understand self, the elements, the elements of the self-realization is recommended. Higher intelligence is given to human being for God realization, to understand one's relationship with God and to develop love for God. So human beings are very proud, and they are doing so much, technical advancement. But it's what says that intelligence is of course given. The intelligence that human beings have been given, of course, is a high intelligence. Okay, and we have talked about that before also. There are three types of, in nutshell, there are three ways or three degrees of consciousness. So human intelligence is mukulata consciousness, fully developed advanced consciousness. But this consciousness is for us to realize God. But the same consciousness will give the result if it's being misutilized. It will, the higher intelligence, if the intelligence is there, wherever it is going to be invested, it will give the result. But the point is being made here that it should be invested in God realization. Also, true religion is basically teaching people to be satisfied with the bare necessity of life while cultivating Krishna consciousness. So any religion which is true religion will focus more on training the people to elevate their consciousness rather than training them to degrade their consciousness. And you can see that the whole Taliban thing is going on right now. And when you hear the news, it's so heart touching. And they have a all that stuff that is happening. They are killing thousands and thousands of the people, and all of that is happening on the name of religion. So, is it a really true religion? Is it really religious fight, religious war? If you really look at from the Vaishnava perspective, no, this is nothing but mundane sense, gratification. Somebody is trying to do something for their personal benefit. So they are really not true religious people. All wealth belongs to Krishna. So also we have to have this understanding that the whole arrangement that is given to us for us to enjoy, for us to, basically use for our purpose, all of them ultimately uh, coming from Krishna. He is cause of all the causes. But the people who are not God conscious. This type of people, number one, they do not uh, believe in God, and number two, the resources that they have, uh, resources that given to them, they will misutilize those resources. So these are the some key points mentioned in the uh, purport. Prabhupada is giving the example there, and I'm sure all of you might have heard, we had, done once drama on that cobbler's pastime. So yes, people, they don't know, they don't care about their uh, next life or even for this life. You know, not to scare, but sometimes it has been seen that our family member is cause of our suffering. For whom we have given our life, we have worked hard for their pleasure, but when time comes, that same person become cause of our suffering. So not necessary that people who are not part of our family are not our enemy. Okay, it is also true that somebody can take birth in on family, in your family, and will be the cause of your suffering. So, as a devotee, we need to understand these things. All of that thing that is arranged around us is to award the result of all the action that we have done life after life. So that is why trying to use our higher intelligence to understand some of these things and elevate our consciousness towards Krishna. So Atyahara is the cause of prayasa. Prayasa is the over endeavoring for the things which have no spiritual value. Then prajalpa, unnecessary talk. Prajalpa means to waste one's time and energy in useless mundane talks and in criticizing or gossiping about others. It is like the sound or croaking toads. So this is a beautiful example Prabhupada has given, that in the rainy season, when it rains, the frog comes out and it starts, coo, 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 starts making that, toading sound. And hearing that sound, snake comes and, it's that, that frog. Very simple, but very powerful example that too much unnecessary talk may become cause of our destruction. And then Gyanis, they are doing too much dry speculation and giving the wrong interpretation of the Shastra by investing their energy. They invest their energy to understand Shastra, but they give the description of the Shastra based upon what they like, to hear. So that type of endeavor, Prabhupada is saying, is prajalpa, is not accepted. Also, karmis, they are engaged in pious deed and some of the ritualistic activity, uh, dharmarth kam moksha. They are engaged for some other return rather than pleasing the supreme personality of Godhead. That type of endeavor is also prajalpa. Also, newspaper, magazine, novels, crosswords, playing games, debates on socio-political topics, all of that is considered prajalpa. Prabhupada is summarizing that if we must talk, we should talk about Krishna. So right now we are talking, I'm at least talking, and we are trying to talk about Krishna. And then the next one is Niyamagraha. Niyama means rules and Agraha means eagerness to accept, or Agraha also means failure to accept. So too much, eagerness to accept certain thing, and also too much dvesha, too much, rejection toward a certain thing. This both rag and dvesha is not, too much raga and too much dvesha. Patanjali Sutra has given 5 sutra of why human beings are suffering. And out of 5, those two are raga and dvesha. So too much raga also for certain thing is not good, and too much dvesha, is also not good. Too much, hatred is also not recommended. So there are some examples given here that, Prabhu, I'm hearing some sound. Who is talking? Let me. Okay. So both of, raga and dvesa, we should try to have some bhava or a life that is, fully balanced. Then Jan Sangha, bad association. Bad association, associating with the people who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, people who are criticizing the Vaishnava, people who are after bhukti. Bhukti means sense enjoyment. Mukti means liberation. Siddhi, who are for some, mystic, potency. So people who are after bhukti, mukti, or some mystic potency, people who are atheists, all of that type of association, Prabhupada is saying in the purport, that should be avoided. We should not be associating with the people who are not interested to be Krishna conscious. So I know that the common people normally say, ISKCON devotees are very, very, serious. They don't eat, they do not unnecessarily go to, birthday parties and this and that. Some of that teaching is coming right from here. Prabhupada is saying, in his purport, that all of these bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, all the pseudo, people who are basically pretending to be engaged in bhakti, but they have some other ulterior motive. All of that type of association should be rejected, and one should inspire to get the good association. One should try to live in the association of a saintly person, people who are striving to become the pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the sixth item is lolyam, which refers to greed. And when somebody has greed, then it's very difficult to have a steady mind. Okay, if we have greed for, just take the example, if we have the greed for name, fame, prestige, or anything else, not pure bhakti, then it will be very difficult for us to have the steady mind, and we'll be, making the prayasas to get some of the stuff that is not recommended here for devotee to follow. So greed is also very, very bad. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Desire for, again, becoming a siddhikami or muktikami or bhukti kamis, all of that is not accepted, or not, it should not be accepted by devotee. So by prajalpa, one indulges in criticizing the sadhu, and by lolyam, one awakens a taste for false conclusion. Both of these lead to namaprad. So one should very carefully avoid them. So there are 10 offenses against the supreme, in the holy name of the Lord. And the first one is, what is the first one? What is the first offense?
To blaspheme the devotees for propagating the holy name of the Lord.
Yeah, so devotees who are engaged in serving, who are engaged in serving Supreme Personality of Godhead, if we blaspheme those devotees through prajalpa, then that is going to be offense against the holy name. And also, if we have too much greed, then greed will develop the taste for something false, something, will, for example, we say that, nam and namino, there is no difference between nam and namino. How it's possible to understand that? So sometimes one may reject those type of, statement, that how Krishna and Krishna name is the same. Rather, they will come to the false conclusion, saying that these are, two different things. So likewise, if we are engaged in some of these things, overall, it's going to basically distract us from the path of bhakti. So that's what we had in verse number 2. They here in this slide, I'm going to just highlight some of the key points that we, just went through. So if one fails to give up these 6 unfavorable things to bhakti, then number 1, one's ability to understand the greatness of the Krishna bhakti will be lost. So if one fails to not follow these 6 items that we just went over, one's ability to understand the greatness of Krishna's bhakti will be lost, and one will be forever deviated from the path of bhakti. But if we avoid, if we refrain from this 6th fault, then all types of enmity that we have towards other living being or other country or whatever, format that enmity has, Prabhupada is saying that all of them is going to be seized, and all economical or potential problem that we have in the society, slowly and slowly, those problems will be taken away. Definitely, Laulyam and Prajalpa is some of those things that you will see very, very prominent in our today's societies. We see that thing happening, everywhere. People have utsaha, but they don't have utsaha for bhakti. They have utsaha to go and, watch the cardinal games, So the utsaha is there. All of these 6 elements that we just gone through, you can find in the people, but those are basically not being used for self-realization. Rather, those are being used for sense gratification. So that's all we had in verse number 2. Is there any realization? Anything else anybody had before we move to the next verse? I'll give maybe a minute or two if there is any question or any realization. Do we agree that all of these are important for us to do?
Yes, Prabhu, absolutely.
Right.
And I guess the thing that for me is, like when you think about prajalpa, because it's so important to not engage in prajalpa, but it's you have to be really vigilant because it can sneak in, Prabhu, right? It's you can engage if you're not vigilant about not engaging in prajalpa. It can just happen without you if you're not aware. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's just important to think about what you're saying and talking about and thinking always, but that's how it helps me.
Yeah. So maybe these things are depends, how you are receiving these messages. But what happens is that throughout our spiritual life, we are working on some of these things. As we advance, the real meaning of advancement, the process of bhakti, is basically to aligning our life with some of these teachings, understand these things, And these things, in very pseudo, in a very subtle way exist. And even if we don't want to criticize devotee, but we find a different way to criticize. So one way is, one very obvious way is to talk something, on very gross level, very directly. But it may happen that you work on that one, and then that will go, and then it will become maybe a little less gross, and it will keep on going down, and then it will come to the subtle stage. So these things are not very ordinary, and not very simple statement. We these are the things that we have to keep on reading, reminding, and working. Sranam, mananam, and nidhyashanam. So hearing, then doing some contemplation on these things, and then trying to practice those, and that's what will slowly and slowly help us become more Krishna conscious. On the other hand, also that one cannot pretend, and we'll read in next verse. One cannot pretend to be advanced devotee if one has all of these demerits, all of these faults. It's not possible. One may pretend, I may pretend to be advanced person, but if I have these faults, then it's all just kind of false, kind of aspiration or false understanding of one's position. So the real advancement is that slowly and slowly we should bring these qualities in our life. I remember a very simple example that everybody has attachment, but that attachment either can be for Krishna or can be for things of the material world. At the same time, we cannot be attached with Krishna and also attached with the material thing. Yes, the process of disentanglement is like that where we have loosely connection with material things. We have loosely connection with Krishna also. Right now on the both side, connection is very loose, very soft, dilute connection. And any, disturbance can basically completely disengage that connection that we have. But the goal is that the material connection that we have, slowly and slowly, that should be basically, going away, and it should be getting, mostly towards Krishna. And pure devotion is basically when we have no attachment for the things of the material world. Simultaneously, we cannot have attachment for both things at the same time. So that is why some of these instructions are very, very important. Prabhupada has written pages and pages of the purport. So please read those purports. I just kind of went through those and brought the key highlights that I kind of caught while I was reading it. But if you read, you may find some other points important there. But there are a lot of points Prabhupada is making in the purport. So I request all of you to please read that. Okay, so moving to verse number 3. And these verses now are going to tell us what are the things that, so we just finished reading avoid. What are the items that we have to avoid? Now we are going to get into what are the items that we have to adopt in our bhakti. So verse number 3. Utsahan nishyad dharyat tat tat karma parvartanat shanga tyagat saturvriti sadbhir bhakti prasiddhyati. So in the previous verse, we just read vinashyati. Here we are reading prasiddhyati. So let's see what are those. There are 6 principles favorable to execution of pure devotional service. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success in pure devotional service. So utsaha is enthusiasm to serve. And nishayat, confidence, having firm faith. Dharyat, having patience. Satatat karma pravartanat, and then favorably engaging in the limbs of bhakti, such as Sravanam, Kirtanam, Asmarnam, those 9 limbs of bhakti that's given to us. We should be in very positive way with firm faith, engaging ourselves. And then Sangha Tyagat, abandoning the bad association, staying away from association of bad people. Sato Vritti, following the previous Acharya. Sato means saintly person. And Vritti means the instructions or the direction or the marg that is given by them. So Satto Vritte, following the teaching that given by previous Acharya. Sadbihir Bhakti Prasiddhyati. These 6 activities assure advancement and success in bhakti without any difficulties. So Utsaha is, very, common. I'm sure all of you know what is Utsaha. Nishaya means having confidence. Okay, in the process of bhakti, we need to have firm confidence that this process that we are engaged in is going to help. Krishna will surely help me. Avasya Rakshive Krishna. Krishna will surely guide me and give me the instruction that how we can advance, in the process of bhakti. So one need to have firm faith. Prabhupada is writing that if one just got married, one should not say, oh, I just got married and I don't have any offspring. Rather, you have to have the patience, and that's coming up right here. That one, in the process of bhakti, have to have the confidence, and with that confidence, keep the patience. Patience that slowly and slowly, by engaging in bhakti at due course of time, all the Vaishnava qualities will manifest. Okay. Also, having the dharya. It's very, very important to mention that dharya not only for the results that's going to come in the future, but also dharya to adhere with the process of bhakti. And in the purport, Prabhupada is writing that Haridas Thakur, when Muslim tortured him, he said that my body can be cut into 1,000 pieces, but I will never leave chanting the Harinam. I will never leave the chanting for Krishna Mahamantra. So that's the reason we went through those Shaktis, Antaranga Shakti, Tathastha Shakti, and Bahiranga Shakti. Why? Because we have basically, made that deal to come and associate with the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that association, there will be challenges. Okay. So in that challenge, we should have, formed dharya that I am on the right path. It is really a matter of luck. It's my good fortune. Bhagavatam talks about that, so I don't have time, but I can give some example how devotee feels. In 11th canto, there is a beautiful story. How devotee should feel. Devotee should feel that I am very, very fortunate. Very, very fortunate. Very, very fortunate. Extremely fortunate that in this age of Kali, I have been given the opportunity to do bhakti of Krishna. And with full enthusiasm, one should engage in the bhakti process. And then engage in limbs of bhakti, do that 9 items that's prescribed for bhakti, and also try to refrain and stay away from the items which are not recommended. So follow the vidhi. Vidhi means method which is given for one to elevate, and refrain nishedha, the things which are given for us to not do. Then associate with the people who are like-minded. Don't associate with the people who are worldly people, who are, not trying to be devotee of Krishna. And then, the last item is Satvriti, means to adopt the good behavior and virtuous conduct of the pure devotee in whom all good quality resides. So devotees have 26 principal qualities, which we read in Bhagavad Gita. So slowly and slowly try to basically develop those qualities. So last part of the part, Prabhupada is giving beautiful summary of the bhakti, how powerful bhakti is. So if you want to really understand all the key highlights of the bhakti, I kind of, very much highlighted the key points that's given there. So it's ultimate path, okay? Why we need to have dharya? We need to have the dharya because the path that we all are on is the ultimate path. Okay, this is all the process that's given, that one is engaged slowly and slowly will lead one to come to this path. Once we are on the path of pure bhakti, then we are on the ultimate path. There is no fall down. Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that my devotee will never be perished. So there is no fall down. Also, there is no loss in bhakti. Neha vikarmanasya asti. Whatever little bit that we have done, that's going to stay with us. So we have read all of that. I'm not going to go through that. And even if we fall down, Krishna is saying in Gita, there are two types of fall down. One fall down, Suchinam Srimate Gehe, where we just started the bhakti and in very premature stage we fall down. And then there is second type of fall down when we are falling down, when we have advanced in the bhakti. And in that stage, when we fall down, Krishna makes sure that next life we take birth in a family of a devotee, and then we can start our bhakti where we left. It's causeless and ceaseless. Ahituki apratihata. So ipum samparo dharma ado bhakti. So the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of God is ahituki and apratihata. Ahituki means there is no condition. There is no basically prerequisite for one to start bhakti, and it's also uninterrupted. Once we have started the bhakti, then this process is not going to be interrupted. And at due course of time, by engaging in bhakti, all the good quality will manifest. Sargun samahite. And here the Bhagavatam verse from 5th canto, 18th chapter, verse number 12 has been cited. So these are some of the beautiful points that's being made here, that how potent and powerful bhakti is. So that's how verse number 2 and verse number 3 finishes. I also want to go through the. Did you all receive email that I sent today? Can somebody confirm?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to go through what I sent. Let me explain you. Okay, so this okay, so the folder that I sent you has 4 files, and worksheet for Nectar of Instruction. You don't have to do anything for that. You just if you have some free time, just go through it and try to. It's kind of fill up the blanks type of questions. So it's all coming from Srila Prabhupada's purport. That will help you read Prabhupada's purport. So you don't have to submit the worksheet for Nectar of Instruction. Rather, this is just a study material for you to read. Also, the list of verses that we have to memorize. There are list of verses for Bhagavad Gita, the Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Upanishad. So in Nectar of Instruction, the list of verses are given there, and those are the verses you will have to memorize. And then there is a brief overview, what is basically spoken in each verse, some key highlights of that particular verse. So that's a very good summary for you. I know if you are giving a lecture on Nectar of Instruction, some of those key highlights that you can look at and prepare yourself for lecture. And then the last file is a complete homework for the Nectar of Instruction. So let me open that file. Just 1 minute, Prabhu's Mata is coming up. Okay, so there are 6 lessons, and lesson 1 has preface and text 1, and then there is 1 essay question. So you can basically copy from the main basically homework question that I have sent, and you can basically answer those and send it separately. So you can basically copy those questions and you can say homework 1 or maybe homework lesson 1 and then send it to me. And then we have lesson 2 that has verse number 2 and 3. So same thing you can do. And then there is 1 essay question. So you can copy all these questions in a separate page and then save as lesson number 2, answer those and send it to me. And then lesson 3 has text number 4 and text number 5, and then 1 essay type question, 2 essay type questions there. And then lesson 4 has 6 and 7 and 1 essay question. Lesson 5 has verse number 8 and 1 essay question. And then lesson number 6 has 9, 10, and 11, and then 1 essay question. So you have to basically go through all of these 6 lessons. All of the essay has to be answered, and also all the questions, you read the purport, and when I'm trying to prepare my material for this 1 hour session that we have, I'm trying to basically answer some of those questions that is coming there in your homework. So by hearing what we have been going through from last 1 hour will help you also add few additional points when you are preparing for your homework. But please don't delay too much. These homeworks are not as big as Gita's Bhagavad Gita homework. In Bhagavad Gita we had so many small sessions and so many questions. These are like 2 or 3 questions. So I'm expecting that all of you should be moving very fast on Nectar of Instruction, so that we can very quickly get into Nectar of Devotion. So 6 lessons. In 2 weeks, I finished lesson number 1 and lesson number 2. So please take your time and work on those 2 lessons. And in 4 next classes, I'll try to finish remaining verses. And we should be very much wrapping up with, we should be very much, done with Nectar of Instruction. Then we'll have the exam, and then we'll start the next book, Nectar of Devotion. So please look at the, attachment that I sent you. If you have any question, you can text me or you can call me. If there is no question, that's great. Please work on your homework and keep on sending on time. So that's all I had. I would like to see if there is any question, anything that we need to discuss.
Oh, you'll put the recording on your channel, right?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Because I did not see the recording from last.
Yeah, Prabhu, I was not in town. Yes, Prabhu,
okay.
You're right.
Okay.
So I'm going to work on that one. Aparna Mataji is also not in